Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to GTNH. So we're picking up right where we left off last episode. I just filmed the outro for the previous episode here, and I'm doing that because I'm just so hooked on these bees. I want to get... We're going to have another bee episode today. So we're going to figure out this Alveary. Obviously we got the upgrade to the apiary crafted, and also started our bee quest line. If you'll remember, we left the last episode with some apiaries set up here, in order to get both royal jelly, which we're at 58 out of 216 for a second Alveary, which I would ideally like to pick up this episode, and just over a stack, almost a stack and a half of pollen. Again, we need 216 for the Alveary. In terms of the bees that we have the first couple of quests, although I would like to try to get our hands on some pretty valuable bees this episode. And I would also like to figure out a permanent home for the bees, so we need to figure out a location where we're going to set up all the apiaries and alvearies, where we're going to have the centrifuge for comb processing, and probably also some output storage, and just a nice place to hang out for all the bees. So that is what we're going to start off with this episode. I'm going to take some time and try and design a place for these little guys to live. It's a toss-up between going south or going north. But the problem with both of those options is that north, I think, is where we're going to have our auto-crafting machines, so I don't really want to put anything up here. And south is close to our power supply, and we're going to have some machines here which take some massive amounts of power, and so I want those kind of close to the power supply to minimize cable loss. So I really don't know where we're going to place these bees, but I want it to look awesome and also fit in with the base if possible. But maybe incorporate some more nature elements because of the colour of these multi-blocks. It's not really like the rest of the base, so I think we can get away with doing something a bit more thematic. One thing is for sure though, and that is these machines in this Alveary cannot stay here. That is for sure. And this bee as well for the... what is this, the tropicals? Yeah, for Silky. Here we have Metis, and we have Diddy, named after two very important people in our bee adventures. So on the advice of some of your comments, I did go out and find another village, both for to collect some more bees, and also to find, most importantly, the beekeeper, who we're going to name Diddy, after Diddy G, of course. And yeah, this guy can give us, well, apparently he can give you the apiary trade, so you don't have to craft them. But check this out, he gives you 6 proven frames for an emerald. And if you'll remember, this is the one that we needed the research for, and it's quite a pain to craft actually. It takes a royal jelly and a bunch of different V, but we can get 6 for a single emerald here. He's also going to trade us some drones, which is not a very useful trade, and some mossy comb, as well as the ender drone, which I'm not sure how useful that's going to be, but I guess we're going to need it for breeding. And Metis here is from Witchery, I believe, the mod Witchery, which we are going to have to get in order to fix the climate for the bees up there. But more on that later in the episode. For now, the grass is still spreading, but I came out with this basic layout for the hives. We're going to call this the Hives. That just sounds like a cool name, right? And that's what they're going to be, a bunch of bee colonies. And yeah, this is the start of our hives. We can always tile this as well if we need more. Although this, I'm thinking, is going to fit multiple different apiaries, so we're going to try to cram like 6 in each of these chunks. Each of these grass, I don't even know what they are. Are they hexagons? I guess they're octagons. They have 8 sides. Well, it's Minecraft. You know what I mean. I don't know what shape they are. But I managed to keep them all chunk aligned actually. So very important to me at least is to also align it with our base. So if we check the center of this ME controller, for example, is here. Then we count out 7 blocks, as always. I showed this before, but yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That leaves the next chunk boundary on the inside of this chunk. So it's going to be inside of the chunk here, inside, inside, inside. That puts us here. And then we count out, like, yeah, you just basically count in 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the middle of the chunk, and also lines up with the middle of the hives. And then another 7 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Takes us to the inside of the chunk, which lines up with the border here. So everything is all neatly aligned, and that will help us when we come to do the wiring and things later on. Yeah, I don't really have much figured out other than this, so yeah, I did do this in creative so that I could get the schematic. This was a pretty complex shape to try to put together and tile. So yeah, I wanted to do that in creative mode and then copy it over here. But yeah, like I said, other than this, we don't have anything figured out, and there's quite a lot of problem solving for this episode, I think. There's a lot of things I did not take into consideration. Oh, that looks so cool up there. There's a lot of things I didn't even consider last episode that we're going to have to tackle today. And one of those things is this. So you know how the miners take drilling fluid, and we have drilling fluid automated in this mixer, then being sent to an ender tank, then away to the miners on other planets, and also the drilling rig, somewhere over in that direction. Yeah, in the recipe for drilling fluid we need lubricant, and lubricant is also used in the cutting machines inside our clean room here, which is supplied passively to these machines. They do have a big internal buffer, and it lasts quite a while, but yeah, again, we're out for the drilling fluid, so we're going to have to add a distillation tower. So there's a couple different ways we can get lubricant, mostly from distillation, and there's a few different recipes we can run. We can either do creosote oil, we can do seed oil, which actually we have on passive by now. We automated that with the farm last episode. We can do fish oil, light oil, raw oil, heavy oil, but the one we're going to go for is creosote oil, since that is basically just a junk output from the distillation towers here, and we changed it around so that we're collecting it and sending it away to main fluid storage. So we have a couple million in each super tank here on site, and it's being voided overflow, along with, I think, a full super tank at main fluid storage. So we are just going to add a distillation tower here. We need the distillation tower, of course, clean stainless steel machine casing. I think we're going to run this at HV. Do we have an energy hatch? Yes, we do. 11 casing is not going to be enough, so let's craft, like, a bit. I don't know how much we're going to need. It's going to be a 3x3 since there's only one output from the distillation tower. And I'm thinking it's going to go right on top of this one, which is distilling diluted hydrochloric acid. Let's see, we also need input hatches and output hatches. We can do LV for this, I think. And then output hatch can be... We can do the ME output hatch here, right? I think we can. Yeah, let's go ahead and request one of those. Oh, it is so nice having wireless applied energistics by now. It's so good. So we need a fluid export bus, right? Yeah, this should be super easy to set up. We have enough channels on the line, so all we need to do is input hatch, energy hatch, fluid export bus, request creosote oil, and it should be supplied since we have the fluid storage bus at main fluid storage. And yeah, it's already filling the hatch. Then we need some blue alloy cable to run the energy. I'm hoping that we have enough amperage on this line, but these machines aren't running all the time, and I don't think it takes a full amp for the recipe, so we should be okay. So let's connect that up. We'll need a maintenance hatch, and the output hatch is also crafted, which we can put right here, and that will plug in and send the lubricant away to main fluid storage. Let's actually double check we have a space for it here. It might still be in the overworld. Oh yes, nice. Seed oil, we're back up to 22 buckets. And polyphenylene sulfide is also refilled. We're up to a full super tank. Again, not that we need that much, but we have it. Okay, let's find... maybe we should add some signs or something like that for this. It would be nice if you could place all the fluids in world and we could display them that way, but I'm not so sure all of these fluids are placeable. Yeah, looks like we don't have a space for it in main fluid storage. That probably means that it's still here in the old fluid storage space. Lubricant, if I remember right, is one of these. That soldering alloy. Aha, here. You're coming with me. And the storage bus. Okay, so now we have a space for it to be stored. It should just be picked up by the fluid output hatch here, or the output ME hatch. And the rest is just going to be casings. We need our maintenance hatch. And we also need a circuit number. I think this is circuit number 2. This should form the multi-block though. Right? Did I miss a casing in the middle? Yeah, I did. Still though, it's an incomplete structure. Can we not have the ME output hatches on distillation towers? I wonder if that's the case. I know it doesn't work for every single multi-block, but I didn't realise that we might as well craft another one of those. Didn't realise that the distillation tower was part of that blacklist. Let's try just a regular output hatch, see if it forms then. Nope. Okay, there we go. I got it to form. I think this distillation tower was messing with the multi-block, so we had to push it up a block, which I'm not such a fan of. And I also just realised that we are going to have to switch this out with a regular output hatch. And the reason for that is because these will cache fluids indefinitely. And we actually need creosote oil for that wood block for the bee stuff. So I don't want it to just go through all of our creosote oil and not leave us with any whenever we need to craft that stuff. So doing it this way means that whenever the output hatch is full and main fluid storage is full, because the distillation tower has void nothing, it should stop the recipe and then start buffering as creosote oil. We could use, also I want to move this up a block just to keep it consistent. We could use like a fluid level emitter or something like that to control the distillation tower, but honestly I really don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's only one recipe that we need creosote oil for, and so, yeah, if it becomes an issue we'll address it, but it should be fine. Oh yeah, and also for the distillation tower you have to have another output hatch on the top. Which we're just going to rotate just for the multi-block to form. Even if there is only one recipe output, which is the case for us, we also need a program circuit of 2. And this should start the recipe. Perfect. We need mufflers though. And finally, we'll need a dual interface to collect the output, which we are now getting lubricant again. Hide this from the interface terminal, and we should actually see our miner turn back on. So I do have one miner placed. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but the 2 that we collected last episode are still in the chest here, ready to be placed again. I don't know where we're going to put them, but yeah, that's the error message that you can see here. That's the 2 that are offline. And the other one here is... Has it restarted itself? Oh yeah, the number is ticking down, so we should be generating resources again. That's out in the overworld somewhere. Yeah, perfect. So that's one more thing that we don't have to worry about. One more thing off the list, and one more thing on passive. So we now have lubricant for the cutting machines, which will be moved eventually when we move all of our autocraft and stuff. And we've now fixed our miner situation again. I don't know if I love the fact that it's now floating, but we'll live with it. Maybe we can do some scaffolding. Is that going to look terrible? Yeah, that's going to look terrible. Although maybe not. Wait, what about some frame boxes? Yeah, that's really not so bad, right? Oh, and also, a thing I always forget about in GTNH is we can use plates as covers. Oh, why are they white? This is clearly aluminium. Can we dye them? I think that just dyed the frame box, yeah. Oh man, do we have a blue plate in anywhere? Not really. We could use like diamond or ender eye, but those are going to look weird. Silver maybe? Maybe silver is going to be closer in color. Nah, that looks strange. I think I prefer just the regular frame box. Although dark blue isn't so bad actually. Yeah, maybe we'll just dye them all dark blue. And just to verify, we are getting lubricant here, aren't we? Yes, we are. It's just all being eaten by either the miner or the drilling fluid production. So now that lubricant is taken care of, I spent some time trying to develop the aesthetic of our bee area, the hives. Ideally, it's not just a big flat platform, and we try to integrate it into the aesthetic of the existing base. And while building, I also wanted to think about where we're going to handle the comb storage and comb processing. So I'm thinking that most of the comb outputs are going to be stored in a subnet, and that's just going to make it a bit easier when it comes to the processing. And speaking of processing, some of the combs have special processing. They're not necessarily all just sent through a centrifuge, although most of them are. We need some large chemical reactors, and yeah, so I wanted to build an area for that. I wanted to also extend along applied energistics from our main controller to give us some channels to work with up here. And additionally, we have to think about power, as these alvearies and the comb processing will obviously take power to run. So there was a few different things to figure out, and I wanted to take some time to really make sure that this was the correct positioning for this. I mentioned the machines for autocrafting were going to be placed up here in the north, but actually we might still be able to fit them in underneath the hives. Alternatively though, we just have our autocrafting machines in the south, and we have things like our assembly lines and fusion a little off to the side, again quite close to the power supply. But yeah, I spent several hours here just trying to prepare everything that we're going to need for our bee empire in the hives. Oh, this is such an exciting project. I'm loving this. And you guys seem to be loving it as well, which is amazing, because yeah, we're going to be doing bees for quite some time. What do you guys think? Is this an improvement? Because I certainly think so. These guys are talking amongst themselves. They're plotting against us. Diddy and Metis, I'm keeping an eye on you too. Anyways guys, I have been extremely busy here trying to prepare the hives, and I went a bit overkill. This is 100% overkill, I can guarantee you that. At least for the point we're currently at, because our bottleneck, believe it or not, is actually seed oil. So I tried to request another 2 alvearies, and yeah, we're missing a bit of honey. I did go back into the nether, as you saw, but the seed oil is just taking forever. I don't know what we're going to do about that. I might have to beef up the farm up there. Maybe add a few capacitors, because I don't believe we have capacitors in the farming station up here. It's just on default. Oh no, we have an octadic in here. And peanuts. Oh yeah, I guess it has to fill the buffer first on the farming station. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling here. Let's let's check out the hives. Check this out. Oh, this is so cool. Not all the chunks are loaded, so I'll have to increase the loaded chunks here. Or yeah, claim the chunks. Some of the grass is still growing. But yeah, I basically doubled it up purely for symmetry. Oh, we're falling. We're falling. Oh, that could have been so bad. I thought I would have landed down there when I hit F5 there, but apparently not, and I'm destroying everything. But yeah, this, I don't know about you guys, but I am super pleased with this. That is a screenshot and a half. That is a screenshot. So, let me give you a quick tour, and then we're going to get on with the apiary over there, because I'm really excited to actually start bees. I feel like I have not done anything except place blocks for the past... Well, I said it was hours, but it's actually been a full day of building. Yeah, and we're missing a block here. Let's fix that. Hopefully no other blocks are missing, but man, these neonites were such a pain to place. Enough complaining though, this is all positive here. I'm really loving the way this came out. So we have our central control room again. I guess we've got like control room number 2. This is the hives control room. And here I've set up a subnet, and the orange is of course our main net, so we should have access to the main applied energistic system here, which we don't. I just realized actually I forgot to kickstart that craft for the Alveary, because I wanted to craft 2, but we can craft 1, so let's get that started. And I'm not absolutely loving the situation here with the cable, but like I said, I think I have fully committed now to putting machine processing underneath here. So what I might do is actually extend down this tower all the way to the ground level over there and extend it along, and then we can hide all this cable. Or we can just throw a wireless connector, but yeah, those are kind of expensive on power. We do have one right here, so blue, remember, is subnet connection. So I've extended blue all the way up to here, and the wireless connector connects up to where the terminals are up here, just behind the drives, which is going to store the outputs of the bees. So just behind here we have a little 2x5 space, and it appears that I didn't link the P2P connection. So we're in chunk 16.1. You guys remember the map? Yeah, the graph for establishing a name for the P2Ps. This is chunk 16.1. So let's go ahead and put that on a blank P2P channel. This one should do. And it's called the Hives 16.1. Let's bind this together. And now we should have access to a replied energistic system up here. And the subnet should have also turned on by now, since we have... okay, there we go. It just took a second to link. And any second now. Come on. Oh, I just seen the light turn on. There we go. Yeah, perfect. So now we have access to our main applied energistic system, the orange net. And the yellow is going to be for the hives, of course. I just realized we're missing a piece of quartz fiber to give it power. This is a completely separated network for the time being. The only thing that is connecting the two is power. So we're passing that through with the quartz fiber. And I was also crafting up some 64K drives. Yeah, we have 3 crafted. That should be more than enough for right now, because it's going to take us a while to get all the bees up and running. So let's put in 3 64K drives here, just to give us a bit of storage to work with. But I haven't actually figured out all the wiring underneath. Let's drop in the drives here. The priority shouldn't matter, since everything is just going to be stored in the drives. But yeah, let me show you underneath here as well. We have a second area, and this is what is going to handle the processing of the combs. Now, technically, the most efficient way to do this would be to put the processing near our base, because that's where we have power. But honestly, there's no good reason why it's here other than because I like the idea of it being here. So that's that's what we're gonna do. I'm kind of married to that idea, so yeah, there's not really any reason. It's kind of inefficient, but that's the way we're gonna do it. We're gonna have processing of the combs underneath here, so we'll move our centrifuge into one of these corners here. Like I mentioned, some of the combs have special processing. Let's see if we can find an example here. Yeah, most of them are just centrifuged, but there is a couple, like the coal, for example, which you do have the option to mix with hydrochloric acid, and it gives you purified coal, and then this will be sent into our ore processing system. And there's a few like that. It's mainly the higher tier materials, like for example osmium. Instead of hydrochloric, it's thallic acid, which is a bit of a more difficult thing to make. But yeah, it makes sense. The higher tier combs take more complex chemical processing, if you like. So the centrifuge remains here because this is where we have power. And we have a bit of a decision to make here. Do we go with 4x cable or do we just go with 1x cable? So 4x cable can handle 16 amps of LUV power. And there's no way, let me tell you right now, there's no way we're going to use 16 amps of LUV power up there anytime soon. We're running this centrifuge EV, and that seems to be pretty fast for the combs. It's like less than a second, I think, for most of them. Yeah, look at this. 6.4 seconds at ULV. So we get like 5 overclocks on this thing, taking it up to EV. So I'm thinking, just to save on vanadium gallium cable, we just use 1x cable and we'll run the wire. I didn't account for this though, being underneath. This is the problem with building vertical. Sure, it looks nice, adds a lot of depth into your base, but when it comes to the wiring, it's a bit of a pain, because we're going to have to go underneath this thing. And also be careful with how much amperage we request here. But yeah, as long as we don't have more than one transformer, we should be okay. So yeah, I guess we're going to have to go underneath. Let's see how much cable this is going to take. And you might be wondering about the EUP2P, but at least for vanadium gallium cable, which is 2 EU loss per block, it says in the tooltip there. So we lose 2 EU every block of cable. Apparently this only becomes worth it after about 800 blocks, and the distance we're covering here is approximately 370 between the Lampatronic supercapacitor and the hives. And I think in my calculation, it was just a rough napkin math calculation, But I did take into account the vertical height as well, so it's about 370 blocks-ish. Let's hope we have enough. Oh, this is going to spoil the... Well, it might not look that bad if we cut... Yeah, let's just do it. We might have a better solution in the future. But dang it, I'm sticking to the idea of putting processing up there. Okay, so I went ahead and ran the wire and also built our centrifuge up here for comb processing. We're going to connect this up to the yellow net. So we have another wireless connector right next to the terminals up there on the yellow cable. And we should be able to connect this together. Yeah, it's right here underneath the drives. We do have to be careful of channels because without an ME controller, remember you can only have 8 channels on a network. But we only have 6 drives here and a wireless connector. Or no, the connector doesn't count as a channel, but these 2 devices will. We have the output hatch, which will collect fluids from the machine, and the output bus behind it. I'm realizing that we don't actually have any fluid storage on YellowNet, so that is something I'm going to have to adjust. Either with a fluid storage cell, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing actually, or just a super tank up here for the honey, which we'll get out of the combs. Although saying that, maybe we're not going to need it, because I think all the combs just give you the item and beeswax, for example. The reason we got honey before is because we went to the nether, and we centrifuged all of the Biomes O' Plenty honey. But yeah, that's enough of the processing right now. That's going to be an ongoing upgrade as we invest in more Alvearies. And speaking of, the next Alveary should be finished by now. We're out of wireless range, but I did go ahead and craft up a wireless connector, which we're going to add back here. And this is going to be on orange net. Let's put in 16 boosters. So that gives us 80 meters of range. That should be enough to cover almost the whole hives, I would say. Yeah, we've got access here. Oh, there's a little dead zone right on the edge here between the 2. Yeah, we're out of range. Like, there's a couple of blocks, and then we get range back here from the wireless connector at the controller. But we should be able to hit both sides. I'm not sure about all the way in the corner here. Let's test this. Yeah, it seems we're taking right to the corner. It's like right here. Look at this. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Alright, so let's move on and actually talk about this Alveary now. So I've been doing a bunch of research, and by research I mean bothering Diddy. I appreciate all of your help. And for those of you unaware, he's got a tutorial series which I mentioned last episode, and you guys should definitely check that out. So yeah, I think I understand the way that Alveary is going to work, and our goal here is to get the Industrial and Imperial Bees on passive, and those are the 2 that create the royal jelly and the pollen, which we need to craft more of these Alvearies. And speaking of, the next Alveary is finished by now, and I also learned that you can use any type of wooden slab, so I kind of want to try to see what spruce is going to look like. Let's put the next Alveary right here. On second thought though, I'm going to move them over and we'll have 6 to a grass patch. So yeah, as I mentioned last episode, the Alveary comes with a base production increase. So we're going to get more of the bee outputs regardless of their stats, but we want to try to create the perfect bee, the breeder bee, which we're going to use to pass the stats on to every other bee. But this is quite an involved process, and it's going to take us, I think, probably 2 episodes to get there, as there is a lot of different stats we have to watch out for. We want long lifespan, we want the fastest production, which is blinding. We want to have ideally flower types. Some others come with like vines or water lilies, but those are a bit more difficult to work with. So ideally we want them all with flowers. We want max fertility to give us the most drones. We want, well, effect doesn't really matter for these bees that we're going to have on passive, but we want diurnal, nocturnal, tolerant flyer, cave dwelling, and we also want the climate and humidity to be tolerable for all the bees. So since it's going to take a while for us to get the stats we want, we're just going to use the bees that we have, and we'll start with the Imperial. Let's just take an Imperial drone and queen, and try to see if we can run these. I know for a fact the climate is not going to be ideal, so we're going to have to adjust that with the Alveary, but we do have the capability to do so. So we can tell the climate if we put the bees in the Alveary, and it's going to tell us right here. So we're in normal damp. So I believe the higher up in the world you go, the temperature decreases, but the humidity increases, and the opposite is true if you go lower down in the world. So we are up here at Y132, Normal jungle, like down at like Y64, I think is hot damp. But because we're higher up, we get normal damp. However, the bee... Oh, actually, the bee can work in this condition. Oh, I was under the impression that... Oh, yeah, it's because we have this stat right here. Yeah, you can see humidity, it requires normal, but it can go up or down both 1. And these are stats that we can breed onto the bee. It just happens to have this stat. It must have had it passed on from some of the drones that were in its gene pool. Yeah, the drone here also has both 1 on humidity, which is actually perfect for us. So we can start this just by running the bee. And we'll have to give it a flower as well, of course. And it should actually just start production like this. I didn't actually expect this to work. No flowers still. It might just need a reset. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, so now they're actually producing for us. And they're going to start making us combs, and the queen is going to run our cycle. But we can actually do better than this. If we craft up some of the blocks that we encoded recipes for last episode, I'm going to make an electrical stimulator. Actually, I'm going to make 3 electrical stimulators. And I missed a recipe. I knew I was missing a recipe. Oh, and of course the recipe gets stuck. I know what the issue is here though. I didn't account for the fact that there's fluids in the recipe. And we only have a regular interface, whereas it has to be a dual interface. So that I can handle the fluids. And unfortunately, whenever you do this in GTNH, whenever you send a fluid in a pattern to a regular interface, it's going to give you it as an item, like this. And this is basically just because of GTNH's implementation of fluid crafting. So we need a decoder to, decode the fluid and give us the fluid version of the item back. And I believe as long as there's fluid storage space for it to go, it will just go into the network. And that will be sent back to main fluid storage. Yeah, perfect. Aha, now they seem to be crafting. So the stimulators take power to run. They run on RF. So when I said we're going to have to think about power, I still haven't completely figured that out, and you'll see what I mean by that in a second. But we also need a Alveary transmission. You can think of this like the energy acceptor for the Alveary. So we got our quest and the stimulators, and these require the circuit boards, which are used in some of the recipes, but they are also required for the stimulator to function. And these will give you different modifiers, basically, for the Alveary. So we need to basically configure our circuit board. And to do that, we need to craft a soldering iron. So we need a small power unit inside the carpenter, some molten redstone, and this should start the recipe. Yeah, we're going to get a soldering iron. The forestry version of the soldering iron. Oh, and we have to give it some power. I did remove the capacitor because we're going to need the capacitor for the Alveary up there. I think it went back into our AE system. Yeah, it did. Okay, so we have our soldering iron. There's probably a quest for all this stuff, but I think it's under the... Yeah, it's in the forestry chapter, but there's some prerequisites we haven't unlocked yet. I might actually unlock this between episodes. But we should now have all we need to upgrade this Alveary to max production. However, you can see here we've got our princess and we've got our drones. We're going to take these out for a second as we have to configure the multi-block. So all of these Alveary upgrades can go on any part of the Alveary, any part of the bottom 2 blocks of the Alveary. The top block has to still be these Alveary casings. And there's some specific situations where you have to keep the Alveary block underneath as well. But for now we're going to do transmission on the side for power. And then 3 electrical stimulators here. So now, to go inside the circuit boards, we need the diamantine electron tubes. We want 10 of them, which we do have on Autocraft. And we also want 2 iron tubes. What is it, iron electron? Yeah, 2 of these. Wow, these are crafting fast. It's in the circuit assembler that we blew up last episode. Oh, these are like 190-second recipe. So I think the way this works is we want to put in our circuit board and we want to give it the electron tubes to basically program the circuit. And the configuration we want is 4 diamantine electron tubes. Actually, it's going to be 10 in total, but you can only put on 4 per board and you have to fill all the slots here for it to... Oh, alright. Yeah, we don't want it on electric engine, we want it on electrical stimulator, since that's the block we're going to put it in. The electron tubes give you different effects depending on what you put it inside forestry, because they can be used in multiple different use cases. But for us, you can see here we're getting an increased production inside the Alveary by 1.5, and that is per electron tube. So the optimal setup is 2 intricate circuit boards with 4 diamantine electron tubes, and then a third intricate circuit board with 2 diamond and 2 iron. And the iron only gives us a plus 0.5, and the reason we're not using full diamond in 3 of these stimulators is because if you go above 16 production in the Alveary, actually we're going to be able to see this if we put in a few drones. Yeah, you can see on effective production that b to the power 0.52 times 2.8 right now it is. If you go above 16, which is a threshold, if you go above that, then it turns the pristine stock into ignoble, and the ignoble stock will eventually die in the Alveary, meaning that you lose the princess, you lose the queen, and yeah, you've basically just lost a full bee there. So we want to be careful with how much production speed we increase it by, but we can put in our circuit boards here, and we're going to have to feed it power. This is something that I still haven't figured out, and I think there is actually going to be a nifty solution. But let's just get the capacitor bank on here for now and just see if this works. So we should now be getting, yeah. You can see on the effective production now we're at times 12.218. Now this should take us up to 15.79, I believe, is the actual cap that you can get with the intricate circuit board setup. That's the max that you can do without going over 16. But the reason we're only seeing 12 is because the production speed of the bees is not sufficient enough. Production speed is only normal, whereas we can go up to fast and then up to blinding. So we want to put blinding speed production on the bee, and that should get us up to that 15.79 number, which is the cap on production. Make sense? I hope I explained that well enough. I had to do that a few times, to be honest with you, but yeah, I believe that's correct. I'm going to double check just to make sure I said everything correct. But if you're seeing this, that means that it is correct. So I've went ahead and configured both Alvearies to be the same. We have 3 stimulators and the transmission in the back. I've also went ahead and hooked up the output, well, partially. We have a interface down here, which is connected to YellowNet. So this will ingest all of the combs from the Alvearies. I'm thinking that we have 1 interface per grass patch, and then we feed the output of the Alvearies into that interface. And remember, whenever you feed an interface an item, it's going to go to any available storage, which for us on the YellowNet is the drives back here. And I did have to take off that output hatch to get enough channels, at least without the controller on the net, but eventually we will have to add a controller on this subnet. But yeah, we do have enough channels at this point. We just hooked up the cable directly, and because this is all chunk aligned, this is going to work out perfectly for us, because we can now just chunk load a chunk at a time. Yeah, as you can see on the map here, everything is lining up perfectly. Every grass patch has its own chunk, which means that we can very efficiently chunk load the area, and we only have to do 1 chunk at a time as we start to add more Alvearies. And you obviously want to make sure that all of your AE network is all in a single chunk as well. So in fact, this might cross a boundary, which isn't really a big deal. It's just if it goes into this one here, we want to make sure that is always loaded. Oh, we're right on the edge here. It's this block. Unfortunately, it doesn't cross over, so we don't need to chunk load these 2 chunks here at the moment anyway. So as for the handling of the items from the Alveary, I kind of need some advice here, and I'm really unsure on what to do. So you guys mentioned that we can keep the drones, which I have been doing. I've kept every single drone that we have through multiple generations, and apparently you can melt them down for DNA later on, but I think it's LUV when we get access to all the Gendustry stuff. So we're gated a little bit. So I think what we're going to do for the time being is just store them all in a chest, and then I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it. We don't really have that many Alvearies right now, and I'm gonna be over here quite frequently, so I can kind of monitor things. I don't really want to just stick them in the AE system because obviously they don't stack, and that doesn't work well with Applied Energistics drives, as they can only hold 63 types. So I think what we'll do is we'll just extract everything from on blue channel on the conduit, and we will use conduit here since as far as I'm aware, this is the most efficient method. I mean, we could use Applied Energistics like export buses, but there's not really any need to do that. So we'll use conduit into a chest. That's going to extract everything from the Alveary output space, including the including the princess, which we want to send back into the Alveary to mix with another drone and restart the cycle. So as I mentioned last episode, the drone and the princess will mate and make a queen, and then the queen will run her production cycle based on her stats and is affected by the stimulator. And then the queen will die, output more drones, depending on her fertility stat. So depending on what number this is here under fertility is how many drones we're gonna get back. I don't know if it's guaranteed or up to that amount with the first fertility stat, but I know it does have an impact on how many drones that we get. So everything is going to go into the chest. We want to extract again on the conduit. No need for a filter here, since only drones and queens can go into the Alveary. Although if we're running different types of bees, we might have to add filters or separate the conduits. Yeah, we will have to do that. Yeah, I'm going to have to add a separate conduit. But we'll do that once we get this Alveary up and running. But the basic principle is going to be the same. So we want to insert on brown. That's going to put the princess back in and the drone. And then we're left with the dripping combs and the royal jelly. The drones are just going to stack up in here until we figure out what we want to do with these things. Again, if you guys have any suggestions, then feel free to leave it in the comments. But for now, underneath the chest, we want to add an extract filter and blacklist any bees. I think this is going to work. It's going to ignore all the metadata. Yeah, we want blacklist any bee. And this is just going to be sent into the interface on brown channel. Actually, it's going to be blue channel. If you guys have watched my videos for a while, then you know that it's always extract the finished product on blue, and any intermediates are on brown for Ender.io conduits. I don't know why, that's just the way I roll. And I kind of like to be consistent in that sense so that it's easier to debug systems in the future. So we know that finished products are on blue and intermediates are on brown. But that should have sent everything except for, and it looks like it has. We'll have to check with the princess, yeah, if the princess gets sent to the ME system with those filter settings that we have, but it shouldn't. I think we're going to be okay. And we can check our yellow net, and we're going to start to see, yes, perfect. We have royal jelly, and we have dripping combs. And these are just going to be, stored in the system. We do want to centrifuge the dripping combs, though. This is going to give us honeydew and honey drops. And the honey drops is fuel for the beealyzer. It takes a honey drop every time you scan a bee. So it would be nice to have that on passive, which we can very easily do, actually, with an advanced... Do we have one? We do have one. Nice. These are like the cheaty buses, but we're still going to use them. So yeah, we're going to switch the input bus here with an advanced stocking input bus. So one of the main reasons I wanted this on a subnet, and I think one of you guys actually suggested this, so thank you for that. I'll try and find your comment. One of the reasons I want the output on a subnet is to be able to use the advanced stocking input bus, pull every item, this button here, which pulls everything from the connected network. Switch this out with a casing. Turn it back on. Yeah, we're good. So anything that's on the yellow net is going to be ingested in here. Obviously, royal jelly can't be centrifuged. It has no recipe, even though it's going to stock it in the bus. Yeah, you can see there we've got honeydew now and honey drops. It's going to stock it in the bus, but it's not going to run the recipe. Nothing's going to happen to that. But any combs that can be centrifuged will be centrifuged and then sent on the output hatch back to storage. So this way, anytime we add a bee, we don't have to set any filters. It's always going to be sent into the centrifuge. There was a few cases where we needed honeycomb, the combs directly before centrifuging in some crafting recipes, but I don't know if that's at all necessary anymore. It's really only to craft the apiaries, so I think if we ever need any combs, I'll just set a blacklist, build up a backlog, and then craft the items that we need. This tinted glass, man. I've broken so many glass blocks today. Okay, so now that we have the Imperial, it's time to look at the Industrious. And these ones, I'm almost positive we're not going to be able to run in that other dimension. These ones do not have the tolerance that the other ones do for humidity, and it requires normal. It's asking for a normal humidity. Yeah, this one here is giving us a too humid. So what we're going to have to do is upgrade this Alveary once again. Alveary High Grow Regulator. I thought it was It's High Grow Regulator. Has two modes, water and lava. Lava will increase the temperature by 10% and humidity by minus 20%. Oh, this might be an issue then. Because if we go up 10%, oh, we might just scrape by it. Because if we go up 10%, I was thinking that's going to take it from normal into hot temperature. But I'm not sure if that occurs at 90% or if it's at 100%. Yeah, I didn't actually realize that the high grow regulator affects both the temperature and humidity, because we're going to get an increase of 10% to our temperature. But it's really the humidity decrease that we want. Let's just craft up this high grow regulator. We do have it. We do have the recipe for it. Let's just see. And this, by the way, is another problem we're going to have to solve, because the high grow regulator, as far as I understand it, does consume lava. So we need to feed it... Oops. So we are effectively going to have to put lava on passive, and there's a couple of different ways you can do that. We could use an ender pump. What is it called? Endothermic pump from Extra Utilities. We could use this thing. But actually, I really like the idea of the bees being self-sufficient. And so there's something called the simmering comb, which will produce us phosphor. And this is, of course, a bee output from the transmutating bee. Also comes from sinister, fiendish, demonic, volcanic, furious, embittered. I didn't realize there was so many options that give us this simmering comb. Looks like all at various drop rates, but the simmering comb can be centrifuged for phosphor, and phosphor can be fluid extracted for lava. So I'm thinking that this is the way that we're going to generate lava. And similarly, we also have to think about a power source. Right now we're using this capacitor bank, and it uses a tiny amount of RF. You might be wondering, by the way, why we're not plugging it into that line, the LUV line that we ran up here for the centrifuge. But plugging in RF machines into Gregtech energy cable is not recommended. Basically, when it converts EU to RF, it doesn't take into account the amperage on the cable, and it will consume all of the amperage and give you like peanuts of RF. Yeah, to put it simply, it basically just wastes power. So what you want to do is make sure you have a capacitor in between, or a conduit in between. And also, because the Alvearies take so little power, we can also use the bees to power the Alvearies. The refined queen can give us oily combs and petroleum combs, and petroleum can be turned into propolis and then fluid extracted for fuel. And we can burn fuel in gas turbines, which we can, feed to the capacitor banks and power all of our Alveary, power the whole hive base here. But since it will be next episode before we even look at bee mutations, by the way, that setup up there for the Alvearies is really only good for production. There is a much more efficient way to set up the Alveary for mutation, which we're going to look at next time. Since it's going to be a while before we can get the bees that we want, we're going to use something that we have stocked here. If I can find it. Is it this one here? Yeah, refinery gas. We have refinery gas just sitting here. It's not doing anything. We're just voiding any excess, but we get it from processing oil in our oil crackers and distillation towers. So we're going to grab a super tank of this, and you can also burn this in gas turbines. It's not as efficient as burning benzene, but I mean, it's basically free for us, right? We just have it sitting here, so we might as well use it until we can get the bee up and running. So we're going to use refinery gas and hook this up to an LV gas turbine. It doesn't need, like I said, it doesn't need massive amounts of power. We just need to be able to top it up every now and then. Let's see, this is actually, yep, the turbine is spinning, and the capacitor should be filling up with RF. Yes, perfect. Yeah, even just a full super tank of refinery gas, that's going to last us for ages. Okay, so we do have our high grow regulator, and I picked up some lava from the nether. Let's test this out and see if we can run the bee, or if we need to run multiple. So yeah, it's asking for lava. We want to output from the super tank. Oh, perfect. Oh, and we're staying on normal. It's staying 83%. That's what we were on before, right? Yes, perfect. And it took it from 90 down to 71. Oh, we're dying here. Terrawart. Terrawart. We were holding the super tank. Yes, yes. So it took us down to 71% humidity, which is normal, and 83% temperature, which is normal, and we're now making pollen clusters and uh-oh. Oh, it looks like the filter didn't work. Is the princess in the AE system? I bet she is. Yep. Yep, the filter didn't work. So I'm gonna have to either just whitelist. I mean, we could just whitelist the items, right? We could just whitelist pollen and stringy comb. Yeah, maybe that's the better option. We'll just whitelist royal jelly, dripping comb, stringy comb, and pollen clusters on whitelist. We are still going to have to set insertion filters though, because we don't want these two to crossbreed. We want to manually control what exactly we crossbreed, and we'll have a dedicated setup for that. Is this also consuming lava? Oh yeah, that's a pretty fast rate of consumption. That is kind of alarming, to be honest. Yeah, we're going to have to do something about that. Anyways, guys, that is going to be for next episode. We got, well, yeah, I'm super happy with the hives here. Let me know what you guys think about this build. And honestly, I kind of wish I made it a chunk over. Like, just pushed it a little bit further back from the main control room, but it's okay. It's okay, it looks awesome nonetheless, and it looks even better from the map view. But yeah, we're going to look at all the mutations next episode, try to get our breeder bee, and also maybe try to work up to the lava and the petroleum bee, refined bee. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an excellent day, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Oh, look at these guys. I'm loving this. I'm loving this.